the session recording. Hopefully you can all see my screen at your end. That should be at the moment just be a slide letting you know that the webinar will begin shortly. Today's Polypharmacy Prescribing Comparators webinar will be looking at the Polypharmacy Dashboard. We'll have a look at the new metrics that have been introduced into the dashboard and some of the increased functionality that's now available within the Polypharmacy Prescribing Dashboard. We'll also have a look at the different ways the dashboard can be used to identify different areas of polypharmacy that you might want to investigate further. And we'll have a look at that from a couple of different perspectives. We'll look at it from a CCG perspective and a PCN perspective as we're going through. There are quite a lot of people on the session today. It's quite busy. I would ask if everyone could just remain on mute just to keep down on any background noise. If you do have any questions or any areas you'd like me to expand on, if you could just pop those in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on the chat as we're going through. And obviously, if you do have any questions, there'll be plenty of time at the end of the session to answer any of those as well. So we'll get started now. I'm just going to bring up our EPAC2 system. So hopefully you can all see that at your end. And we'll be using the live system just to go through and demonstrate the polypharmacy prescribing comparators. Today's session, we'll be looking at the updates to the Polypharmacy Dashboard. For the previous 5 years, the NHS BSA has worked in conjunction with Wessex EHSN and NHS Digital to create a whole suite of reports looking at polypharmacy. The first dashboard was released in 2017, and we've just released the second iteration of the polypharmacy comparators. This new release includes some increased functionality. As I mentioned, it will allow you to break the information down to additional age bands. It also includes 3 new sets of therapeutic comparators. We have comparators now looking at patients prescribed multiple analgesic medicines. We have a comparator looking at patients prescribed an SSRI or an SNRIs and meds known to increase bleeding. And we have a new comparator looking at the patients prescribed either 2, 3 or 4 medicines with unwanted hypotensive effects. So the range of different new comparators that have been released into the Polypharmacy Dashboard. And the Polypharmacy Dashboard is really available to allow users the ability to identify different variations within polypharmacy. It will hopefully allow you to prioritize specific areas of polypharmacy where you may want to focus any of resources you want to put into that particular area. And hopefully it will allow you to identify any patients that can connection with polypharmacy where you may potentially want to do a medication review, for example. Hopefully the dashboard will allow you to save time identifying those patients, and it should hopefully mean that you don't need to develop any systems locally, possibly using your prescribing software to be able to identify patients who are being prescribed in different areas of polypharmacy. So the dashboard itself can be accessed via the EPAC2 system, and hopefully you're all registered for access to the system. Certainly if you're not, I'll be putting up at the end of the session some useful contact details, one of which being the registration email address that will allow you to get a bit more information on how you can sign up for access to the system. Once registered, the Polypharmacy Dashboard is available via the Dashboard tab. So users simply need to select Dashboards. It will then take them across to the actual dashboard page. And apologies if it is running a little bit slowly. Once across the dashboard page, it lists all of the dashboards that are currently available via the EPAC2 dashboard. To access the Polypharmacy Dashboard, it's simply a matter of selecting the Polypharmacy link. That will then open up the dashboard and take the user to the landing page for the Polypharmacy Dashboard. Polypharmacy Dashboard is available at various different organizational levels. It will allow users to break the information down to either CCG level, practice level, or PCN level. We've got a couple of additional tabs under there that you might find useful when you're using the Polypharmacy Dashboard. There's a datasets tab if you just want to strip out all that raw information. And we have a supporting information page that will give you links to any information that you might find useful when used in conjunction with the polypharmacy information. To look at information at different organizational levels, it's simply a matter of selecting the organization level you wish to view. If you do want to look at CCG level data, that's available either comparing your CCG at a national basis within the HSN, the STP, the region, or similar 10. If you want to look at PCN level information, you can do, and you can compare that either looking at the PCN compared within all of the other PCNs within the this reporting CCG, and or you can compare all of the practices within that particular PCN, a selected PCN. Just a message in there just saying that the slides were particularly small. Is that all right since we've moved across to the live system, or is it still coming up fairly small? I can try and make it a little bit larger if it's needed. But if you're fine on the live system, if you want to just pop that in the chat, if not, I'll try and expand that. So as I think, at PCN level, you can either look at the reporting CCG and compare all of the PCNs. I'll just try and expand this out a little bit. Hopefully this makes it a little bit better for you. Or you can compare the individual practices within the PCN. If you do want to look at practice level information, you can do, and you can compare either the individual GP practices within a particular CCG, or you can focus again with all prescribing organisations within the particular CCG. So if you'd like to include your out-of-hours services or your drug and alcohol services within the comparison, you can do that as well. So for this particular webinar session, we're going to look at the Polypharmacy Dashboard from two particular areas. One is a CCG and how you would use it to drill down through the various different levels, and one is a PCN, and again how you would use it to drill down and identify patients you may potentially want to do a medication review with. If you are a CCG, you can first select the CCG tab, and that will allow you to compare your CCG at various different organizational levels. So for example, if you wanted to see how you compared nationally or within the STP or the similar 10, you can do. You then have a prompt area, which will allow you to select the specific criteria that you would like to apply to those reports. Just make that a little bit smaller so it fit all on one screen. Under there, you have a comparator drop-down option, which will allow you to select all of the specific comparators that are available under polypharmacy. We open that up, you can see you can return reports for the average number of unique medicines per patient, percentage of patients prescribed 8, 10, 15, and 20 or more unique medicines. We've got some of the anti-drug burden scores, and they've recently been reorganized. We've got the volume, so it can identify the patients with an anti-drug burden score of 6, 9, 12 or more, or ones of the new indicators, which will allow you to identify the percentage of patients prescribed 2, 3, 4 medicines with either a moderate or high or a low to moderate anti-drug burden score. We've got the additional comparators at the bottom there, the 2, 3, 4 medicines that have an unintended hypotensive effect. We'd like to identify the percentage of patients being prescribed those, or the percentage of patients prescribed an SSRI and an SNRI concurrently with 2, 3, or 4 medicines known to increase bleeding. So a range of different comparators available. We'll pick one of the new ones, so we'll just have percentage of patients prescribed 2 medicines that can have an unintended hypotensive effect. Whenever you make a selection in any of these drop-down options, it will automatically update all of the reports that are displayed below there. So as soon as you pick anything for any of the drop-down options, they automatically update. You then have a couple of different options that will allow you to select the time period you want to view that data for. That will default to the latest month available, but you can open that up and select any of the other months that's available within the system. And the Polypharmacy Prescribing Dashboard does have data from April 2015 onwards. It's in April 2015 that we started capturing the patient identifiable information, so the dashboard is available from that point onwards. For the Polypharmacy Dashboard, you are only able to run this report for a single time period or a single month at a time. Unfortunately, you can't select multiple time periods to compare the data for. You can only select a single time period, but you can just pick the one you want from the drop-down list. You then have the option to select a particular organization. This will default to the latest, the organization that you're registered under, so you don't have to go and pick your particular organization every time you view the data. The dashboard itself is available at practice level and above, and that does mean you can access information for any organization nationally. So while it will default to yours, if you did want to have a look at a different organization, you can simply open up that drop-down list and select the one you'd like to view. You then have a series of views, that will hopefully allow you to interpret and analyze the data as easily as possible. And they've been set up really to allow you to benchmark your organization against other organizations within the same organizational level. It will allow you to prioritize any particular areas of polypharmacy that you may want to focus on. And then it'll allow you to measure if any interventions that you've made in those particular areas have any effect. So you can see right in the center of the screen now, we've got a bar chart that is allowing you to benchmark selected organization against the other ones at that particular organizational level. We've got some performance tiles that are giving you high level figures, so you can quickly and easily identify the CCG value, the national value, and the difference between the two, so you can see whether or not you're above or below that that national average. And then you've got a line chart at the bottom there that's allowing to give you that trend over time, so you can see if any interventions you have made possibly made an effect. So it really does allow you to benchmark, prioritize, and then measure any particular areas of polypharmacy that you may want to focus your attentions on. With all of the charts that are available within the system, if you did want to switch between the chart and the data view, you do have that option. You'll see right above the top of the charts there, you have a display option. Now, if I open that up, it will allow you to switch between both a chart and data view. So if you just want to see the raw information behind those particular charts, you can access that data, that table of data. For all the tables, you'll notice it does have numerator and denominator, and that will change depending on the particular comparator that you've selected. If you did want the numerator and denominator definition, we've just introduced these new hover over texts that will give you a breakdown of the numerator and denominator definition for the particular table that you're looking at. So that will update depending on which comparator you've selected within the drop-down option. Now, for all of these individual views, you can take these out of the system. So once you've identified an area you may want to focus on, if you do want to take any of these individual views out, you can do. You'll see at the bottom of the reports, you do have the print and export options. You've got them under the individual views. Print will give you printable PDF and printable HTML. Export will give you either a formatted view or a data option, depending on how you want to take that information out of the system. As well as being able to export the individual views, you can also take an entire dashboard page out of the system. If you did want to export the page, in the top right hand corner, you have a little cog icon for page options. And under there, you've got the option for export to Excel, which will allow you to export the current page. So you can either take out the individual views or the entire page, depending on how you want to export the information. So as a CCG user, I'll possibly first use the CCG view to identify if I did have a particular area of polypharmacy I may want to focus my attention on. So I can see for this one I've selected, I am above the national average. So it might be that I want to focus my attention on that area of polypharmacy. Once you've identified if it's an issue for the CCG, you may then want to drill down and see if there's any particular practices within the CCG that have a particular issue with that area of polypharmacy. To do that, you can simply switch across to the practice tab. That will then break down the information for the CCG that you've selected to the individual practices that are registered under it. So I can see now I'm going to get a breakdown of all of the practices within the CCG. If you do make any changes in the drop-down options, they will automatically be carried over to any pages you navigate across to. So I'll make any changes on the CCG page, to the comparator, or the time period of the organisation. As soon as I flick across the practice tab, they'll automatically be carried over. I won't have to select those again. So for this particular view, I'm looking at the percentage of patients prescribed 2 medicines that can have unintended hypertensive effect. I can see for the practice that I've selected, and it's just selected the first one geographically here for myself, they've got 20.93% of the patients that have received a medicine at this particular practice have been prescribed 2 medicines that can have an unintended hypertensive effect. Again, I can compare that against the other practices within the CCG. So I can see I'm just a little bit above the CCG value there. And I can see a trend over time line chart that's giving me any indication of any prescribing over that longer time period. Again, exactly the same on all of the views. If you want to switch between a chart and data view, you can do. You've got that display option, which will allow you to flick through the 2 different areas. And if I want to take any information out, I can print and export the individual views or the entire page. Now, for all of the percentage of patients prescribed indicators, and there's a few of those in the polypharmacy dashboard, it will simply give you a percentage figure within either the performance tile or the table of data. If you would like to identify how many patients that percentage actually relates to, you can switch between the chart and the data view. When you switch between the chart and data view, it will give you a breakdown of the numerator and denominator, which will allow you to identify exactly how many patients that relates to. So for the practice we've got selected here, we can identify that that actually relates to 54 patients that are being prescribed 2 medicines that have an unintended hypertensive effect. That does allow you to quickly and easily just identify if it is a particular area that you might want to focus your attention on. I noticed that someone has just popped their hand up. If you would like to ask a question or anything like that, if you do, just pop it in the chat, and I'll pick it up from there. So you can switch across to the data view and access that number of patients. So you do need if you do need to identify exactly how many you may want to do a medication review with. If you want to narrow that figure down, you can split the information down on the Polypharmacy Dashboard by the age of the patient that's received those medication. In the previous iteration of the dashboard, you could either look at all patients or patients aged 65, 75 or 85 and over. For the new iteration of the dashboard, we have given you an increased functionality for those age ranges. You can now break the information down to a range of different age ranges, all the way from 0 to 17 to 85 and over. And it does give you that increased functionality to be able to identify specific age ranges of patients that may be having issues with polypharmacy. So that's the CCG view, and how you drill it down to identify individual practices and specific areas of polypharmacy that you might want to investigate further. If you want to use the dashboard as a PCN view, you can simply switch across to the PCN tab. This will then allow you to look at 2 specific areas. So you can either look at all of the PCNs within a specific reporting CCG, and then you can look at the individual practices within a PCN. So first, you might like to use the reporting CCG PCN tab to identify whether your PCN as a whole has an issue with a specific area of polypharmacy. And for this particular example, I'm just going to select percentage of patients prescribed 10 or more. Now, unfortunately, unlike the CCG and practice tabs, for the PCN tab, it won't default to the organization that you're registered under. This will always default to simply the first PCN alphabetically. So while the CCGs and practice will give you your organization, you do need to select it each time you use the PCN views. So again, select a particular PCN. You can simply select the CCG that you wish to access the data for, and then select the PCN under there that you wish to highlight within the table of data. You get similar views that you do on the CCG and practice tab. You'll get that table of data that will allow you to benchmark your organization. You'll get some performance tiles that give you the high level figures. Unlike the CCG and practice view, you also get a national average on here. So you can compare your PCN against the CCG average and the national average and the difference between the two. So you can see how you're performing, not just against the reporting CCG, but against all PCNs nationally. And you get that same line chart that's going to give you the trend over time, so you can see if there has been any fluctuations in the data, and if you are making any interventions, if they're having an effect on the particular area of polypharmacy. Again, you can break that down to a particular organization. You look at a specific age range, and you can look at a specific time period. Once you have identified a particular area of polypharmacy you may want to focus your attention on, you can then identify if there are any practices within the PCN that have a particular issue. And to do that, you simply need to switch across to the PCN and practice tab, and that will allow you to break the information down to the individual practices under the PCN. Again, unfortunately, you do need to select your PCN each time when you do that. It won't default to anything. So if you have picked a PCN under the reporting CCG PCN tab, it won't automatically carry that across to the PCN and practice tab. You would need to select it each time. I'll just very quickly pick the same one. So we'll just have a look at the BAF PCN. And to do that, I'm just going to use the search facility. That's BAF Independence. Just double click on that to select. And then again, whenever you make a change, it'll automatically update these views and show us the individual practices within the PCN. So we can identify if there is a specific practice we may want to focus our attention on. Again, you get the same views, so you're getting that bar chart that allow you to benchmark. You've got the high level figures that give you the high level values to see the differences between the practice value and the PCN average. And then you've got that line chart that's giving you the trend over time, so you can identify if you have had any impact on any particular areas of polypharmacy. Again, We can switch between a chart and data view. If you are using the PCN view and you do identify a practice you might want to focus on, if you do switch between the graph and data view, unfortunately it doesn't give you those same numerator and denominator columns. It's just giving you the comparator value within the table of data. So if you do want to identify how many patients that particular area, that particular percentage may relate to, you do just need to switch back to the practice tab and then select the particular practice you want to identify the number of patients for. You can then switch across to the data view and it'll give you that numerator and denominator breakdown, which will help you identify the number of patients that it relates to. Once you've identified any patients that have potentially identified that you may want to do medication reviews with, and you'd like to access that patient identifiable information. Fortunately, there's nothing patient identifiable within the dashboard itself, and there's no patient identifiable information available via EPAC 2. We do hold that information, so if you do identify some patients within the dashboard that you may like to do medication reviews with, and you'd like their patient identifiable information, if you just jump on the supporting information tab, under there we have a patient details tab, and that details the process you'd need to go through just to request that patient identifiable information. It's simply filling in your particular details. Then we need the details of the specific polypharmacy metric that you're looking at and the time period that you'd like that data for. So while there's nothing identifiable within the dashboard, you are able to request that information, and it will save you having to do those searches locally within your prescribing softwares. We can simply provide that information directly from our data warehouse. So that is the polypharmacy prescribing comparators. Just before we finish the session, just very quickly going to jump back onto the EPAC 2 webpage. And that's just to go through some various different linking records that are available on the web page that'll just help you get the most out of the polypharmacy dashboard. The page you can see now is the main EPAC 2 web page, and that can be accessed just by Googling EPAC 2. It'll be the first link that comes back. On that page, you can link across to our dashboard and specification page, and this page holds links to all of the individual web pages for the different dashboards. So if I scroll down, you can see we've got links to web pages for all the dashboards. It's about halfway down that page, we have a link to the polypharmacy dashboard page, and that will give you all of the background information around the dashboard itself. So if you'd like to see exactly how it's been set up and how it's generated, there's a bit of information there on the new indicators that have recently been added to the dashboard. For more information on exactly what's included within those indicators, if I jump back onto the main dashboard specification page, right at the top, we have a dashboard specification section. Underneath there, we have spec documents for the original iteration of the polypharmacy dashboard, and then spec documents for all of the new comparators that have recently been released on the system. So for example, if you're looking at the hypertension indicators and you'd like to know which drugs are included within those particular comparators, that's all detailed within the spec document for those comparators. So that takes us through the areas of polypharmacy. I'm just going to jump back onto our contact details just to finish the session, just to see if there's anybody that isn't currently registered for access to EPAC 2 and they would like to sign up. So we pop an email across to our registration team's email address, and they will help with that process. If you are having any problems with EPAC 2 or you need any help accessing the system, our support team are always happy to help, and there's a contact detail in the center there. And if you would like any additional training using the system, looking at any of the dashboards or any access of EPAC 2, then please feel free just to get in touch with the training team at any point. So that just about concludes the polypharmacy session and taking us through the polypharmacy dashboard. If anybody does have any questions or any areas they'd like me to go back over, if they'd like to pop those in the chat now, I'll certainly answer any questions. If there aren't any questions, that just about covers everything that we're going to go through. So if you don't have any questions, I'd like to thank you all for attending. I do hope it's been useful. And as I say, if you do have any problems in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch at any of the email addresses that are on the screen there now. If anybody does have any questions, I will hang on and the call just to answer any of those. All right, question there on the PCN tab, reporting PCN gives all PCN, but click on. Yes, so I will very quickly just jump back into the system again there now. So if I'm using the PCN tab, you have two tabs under there. One is being set up to allow you to identify whether or not your particular PCN has an issue within the CCG it reports to. The other one has been set up to allow you to identify or compare the individual practices within the PCN. So it's not giving you the option to select all of the PCNs nationally. There's no way to do that, unfortunately. You can only look at the specific PCNs within a CCG. On that reporting CCG and PCN tab, you do have the national average, so it does allow you to compare the PCN selected against a national average, but it won't give you the full sort of list of PCNs nationally and allow you to compare that. Certainly that's something I can feed back to the working group that's been set up to develop the PCN, the Polypharmacy Dashboard. That might be something they'd like to include in the future, but it's not possible to do that at the moment. On the dashboard specifically looking at opioid prescribing rather than just analgesics. We do have a safer management of controlled drugs dashboard that's available within the system, and that looks at prescribing various different controlled drugs. Again, that's back on the dashboard page and under safer management of controlled drugs, and that will look at various different opioid prescribing for very different combination of different drugs. Are you able to see what is being dispensed by the community pharmacies? The information in EPAC 2 does simply relate to items that have been dispensed by community pharmacies. So EPAC 2 holds data for all items that have been prescribed and dispensed in the community. Just a message saying it would be better to default to the home PCNs. Yes, unfortunately, I think they are working. It's getting that that default to actually default to your specific organization. Fortunately, at the moment, it doesn't. It's simply the way that the PCNs are structured in our data warehouse, I think. So it doesn't default at the moment, but that is something that's already been fed back back to the dashboard creator. So hopefully that's something they'll have in the future. I just see another question coming in there now, so I'll just let that come in. Please may confirm is what has been dispensed by the pharmacy. Yes, EPAC 2 holds information for all items that have been prescribed on an FP10 and then subsequently dispensed in the community. It does only hold information for items that have been dispensed in the community. So if it has been prescribed, but for whatever reason the patient hasn't taken it to the chemist, or if the chemist hasn't submitted to us ourselves for processing, we won't hold any information on that. So if you are trying to compare the information shown in EPAC 2 against the information on your prescribing softwares locally in the practices, it may not tally up. It will show only the items that have been prescribed and dispensed, whereas your prescribing software will show everything that was prescribed. It is also worth noting the information on EPAC 2 is based on the month it was submitted to ourselves by the dispenser. So again, that might not always correlate with the month it was actually prescribed in. If the patient's delayed taking it to get it dispensed, or the chemist is delayed in sending it through to ourselves for processing, it may show up in a different month to which it was actually prescribed in. Right, if nobody else has any further questions, I'll end the session there. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I do hope it's been useful. And if you do have any questions in the future, please feel free to get in touch at either the support or training email addresses on the screen at the moment, and we're always happy to help.